In the last video, we talked about input and output. In this video, we're going to be talking about parts of a computer. So as you can see, the concept of input and output is still there. So you have the computer that does the processing. It has a CPU, but then you have a bunch of input and a bunch of output. Real quick, just to run through it, the keyboard is input. It does some processing in the computer, and your monitor is output. The mouse is input through hand movements, does some processing on the computer, and then you have output on the monitor. The video webcam is input. You get a video, right? It intakes video, does some processing, and then give you a playback on the monitor, on the screen, or it can give playback to someone else, right? A scanner is input. You place a physical file on the scanner. It does some computer processing, and then it gives you a file which you can view on your screen, output. The speakers is output because it will read code, it will read audio, and then give you output through speakers, through vibration, right? That our ears can pick up. That is a form of output. The printer is a form of output because it takes that file, it turns it into a physical document by printing what it sees, right? So you take that image, you take that video, that file, and then you print it out into something physical you can hold. That's output. And then the external hard drive is really a form of input and output. If you think about it, you can take this to a different computer, you can move it around, but when you hook it up to the computer and you take a file off of the hard drive, off of the storage, that's a form of input because you're putting it into your computer. When you take a file from your computer and put it onto the external hard drive, that's a form of output because you're taking it off or out of your computer onto that drive. So as you can see, the concept of input and output is all here. And you'll see it a lot in programming in software, right? But also notice the concept of extensibility. It's very extensible, meaning you can hook up a lot of things to it and you can take things from it and it's all going to still work. So it's very flexible is another way of saying it, right? So software, you also want your software to be extensible and flexible. If we go down here, we see that the keyboard and the mouse and the monitor is also called peripherals because it's what you interact with, it's what you see, and it's also, sometimes in your peripheral vision. You have the front USB for connecting stuff to your computer, like phones, headphones, mics, audio connectors for audio, like headphones or mics, a heat sink assembly, which is a pretty much a fan or a cooler for your CPU or processor. So your processor gets really hot because it's processing a lot of data and a lot of current is running through it. And we can get into more of the details later, but it gets really hot, like super hot. And if you don't cool it, it will overheat and it will like catch a fire. So we use fans with copper on it to cool it, or we use I think copper again and water to cool it. So that's a water cooler, and then you have air cooler. The motherboard is a foundation for all the other computer components. So the motherboard allows the computer components to communicate and it connects them together. So it's really the kind of the thing that ties it all in. The CPU, the computer processing unit, is the processor, is kind of the brain of the computer that will process and calculate all those numbers and data. And this is actually what's running your code. And your code will get loaded into the CPU and it will be numbers and they'll just be crunching it and running your program. The RAM is what stores the software, right? So it's kind of like quick storage for the CPU, and your program that you have running is in RAM. So that's why if you have too much programs running, your computer will actually slow down a little bit or a lot because you have a lot of programs in RAM, right? It's getting filled up. It's not a lot of space, So the RAM holds the program, and then your CPU is just calculating it and running it and processing it, right? You have back USB, you have graphics card, that's for your images, your videos. This also has a processor, but it's for video and images. Sound card, that's for your sound. That also has a processor, but for sound. And network card, that's for your internet or Wi-Fi or connecting to another computer. This also has a processor, but it's for networking. Power supply to power your computer, but it also controls how much power is going to your computer. Drive bay is for CDs, DVDs, and hard drive, which is storage. And then you have the modem. This simply connects to the internet that your internet service provider gives you, like AT&T or Cox or Spectrum. This modem then connects into a router, which will broadcast that internet throughout your house or your business or whatever. The router takes the internet and turns it into either cable or a signal like Wi-Fi. This is for your phones, your computers, and sometimes the same box will have a modem and a router. So I hope all that made sense. I hope it helped you understand a little bit more about computers. And as you can see, input and output still there, and it's pretty simple when you break it down. So I'll see you guys in the next one.